The debt deal. We have finally gotten a debt deal done. And I have to say, it's terrible for everyone, it appears to me. As usual, we completely seem to ignore in the discussion that some pretty minor defense cuts could fix such a large portion of the problem, maybe all of the problem, Lewis. But that's not a conversation we have.
And extending those tax cuts was part of the problem, too. That could have helped a lot.
Having extended the Bush tax cuts for the richest people could have made a huge dent in the problem, especially when we think about the compound effect over the years. Instead, poor and middle-class people will lose. They will lose as a result of this because now we have this panel, a 12-person panel, to be made up of 6 Democrats and 6 Republicans. They're going to battle it out, apparently, and try to figure out where they can get $1.3 trillion in cuts. And the idea that the agreement was we're going to find at least as many dollars in cuts as we had an increase in the debt ceiling. And Fox News, in an absolute frenzy, over the weekend, Lewis, Fox News came in and did special frantic coverage. In other words, their main hosts, who normally just work on weekdays, came in to see what would happen when the Nikkei opens in Japan, because people are obviously so scared as a result of what's going on in the United States, making a huge deal out of it. And of course, the term crisis for me is in quotation marks the entire time. That's also not mentioned. So really the main stories here, ladies and gentlemen, aren't even being talked about. Defense cuts, having extended the Bush tax cuts as a compounding effect on the so-called problem.
Corporate tax loopholes.
Huge exaggeration also of the term crisis. But that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, do we need to cut Medicare to find the $1.3 trillion in cuts? So my question to you is, and this is the poll up on davidpakman.com, is the debt deal any amount of real change in anything, or is this mostly just for show? And Jon Stewart on The Daily Show had a brilliant piece pointing out that in 10 years, the debt as a result of this is going to be about $28 trillion instead of about $29 trillion. Okay, from the amount of coverage and the quality of the coverage that we're seeing, you would think this was a much bigger deal. You would think this was the end of the world.
I would.
Well, from the coverage, you would. But clearly that's not the case if we actually want to look at the facts. And
I don't know, from some of the coverage I've seen, it seems like this is the best thing ever.
There is no real discussion of the problems that we are seeing at a fundamental level with lower and middle class Americans. We are not seeing any discussion of the fact that this debt deal is not going to affect any of those things. By and large, lower and middle class Americans are going to have all of the same problems, maybe more, because you have to assume from the $1.3 trillion, some of the stuff that gets cut are going to be programs that are there that the rich people don't need. They won't be affected by their cutting, but lower and middle class Americans will.
And perhaps even entitlements.
No question about it.